Okay, all right, thank you for joining those of you online. I'm going to be addressing the crowd this way. We will, as I said, make this video available online. It'll be on our website and our YouTube channel, that's hih.ie. So I'll speak about the Clinical Innovation Award, and then our colleagues from Enterprise Ireland are unavailable today, but I'll just go through a couple of their slides. They did speak at the event in Galway and in Cork, so they'll also be available online if you want to hear it done properly. And then we have Aoife from the TTO in Trinity College Dublin, who's going to speak a little about that. And we have a clinical innovator, one of last year's winners of the Clinical Innovation Awards, Chris, who's going to speak. Sorry, I should have updated the slide. Okay. So, very briefly, the Health Innovation Hub, we are a national entity funded and supported by the HSE and Enterprise Ireland. And we are located in Galway, Cork and Dublin, between academia and the healthcare system. That means we have an office in Trinity College, in St. James's Hospital here in Dublin, but affiliated with Trinity College Dublin. And the Dublin Midlands Hospital Group. In Cork, it's the South Southwest Hospital Group and UCC and MTU. And in Galway, it's the Celta Hospital Group and Celta Hospital Group and University of Galway. Half our team are clinical personnel who know the system and the people in it. The other half of the team then are employees of the different universities with experience and backgrounds across a wide range of industries and disciplines. Okay, so we're a free service to anybody who has an interest in innovation. Just reach out and we will be happy to work with you. Okay, so what is the Clinical Innovation Award? So this is the only, I suppose, staff-facing award or funding stream sponsored by Enterprise Ireland that's dedicated or focusing on those of you working in the Irish healthcare system who have ideas for an innovative solution to an unmet challenge in healthcare. The rationale being that you're the ones working in the system, so you see the problems on a daily basis and you understand what kind of solution might work for this. Yeah, this is being recorded, yeah. So what Enterprise Ireland have done then is they've, through the Clinical Innovation Awards with us, they've put up for grabs 3 by €15,000 feasibility grants. So this is €15,000 for you to hire a market consultant to deep dive into the market opportunity and around your idea. So why look at the market opportunity? Well, it's really around the type of idea you're going for. If you're looking for maybe a process improvement or a service development type of thing, there are supports within the HSE itself that can help fund those. However, if you're going down the road of developing a new technology or a product that will ultimately impact the way healthcare is delivered, you have to come outside of the HSE to get that funding, and that to develop that, turn it into possibly a business before it's available then to come back in to be used by healthcare or for the patient. So this is what Enterprise Ireland do, and this is the first step kind of on their ladder. So the market feasibility then will look for technology, I suppose, based projects, and is there a market for it? So I'll talk about who can apply in a second. Really, who else is operating in that space, what the competition looks like, where the gaps are, as well as, you know, what it'll take to develop that, what the IP looks like, there's freedom to operate, etc. So they do a full kind of deep dive into it. They speak to clinical experts as well around the world to get a real feel for it, so the problem isn't just a local one that you're seeing every day, but it's national and international. So who can apply? As I said, it's those people working in healthcare. So if you have an ongoing commitment with the Irish healthcare system, you are eligible to apply. If you're a researcher working in the Irish research system or environment or academia, you can partner with somebody in healthcare, and vice versa. If somebody in healthcare, they can partner with the technical person within the university system. And we're happy to make those, or to facilitate those kind of connections as well. If you're looking for something in materials or electronics or whatever it may be. So the winners then will receive, as I said, there'll be 3 winners, €15,000 prize. Winners will also attend Enterprise Ireland's Big Ideas event, which date hasn't been confirmed yet, where it's a showcase of the kind of the newest high-tech startups coming out of Ireland that Enterprise Ireland are supporting, and they'll be pitching at that. So the winners will be on stage with them. You won't be pitching, you'll just be receiving your award. It's a nice, high-profile event to be at. Winners last year also received additional funding from the Department of Health for some prototype development, as well as a scholarship to the NHS's Clinical Entrepreneur Programme, which is the largest clinical entrepreneur program in the world. And over the last 6 years, of maybe 600 people who've gone through it, they have spun out companies and raised over £800 million sterling for their enterprises. Okay, I've kind of gone through the why you do a commercialization feasibility first. The reason being is, if you go and look at the market, if there is a market there, the report comes back to Enterprise Ireland, and if it's a strong one, they will then invite you to apply for more funding. And the next stage is a commercialization fund, which is up to €500,000 to do the technical development and get your product or get whatever it is that you're developing ready for spin out or the next stage, turn it into a company. Okay, how do you apply? The application is on our website, www.hih.ie, and just follow the links to the Clinical Innovation Award. Download the application. It is very straightforward. It's only about 2 pages long, so it's a fairly, I suppose, short application. You need to engage with an academic institution, with the TTO office, and Aoife will speak a little bit about that in a second, to get their sign-off. The reason being, other than engaging with the university and the resources therein, is to Enterprise Ireland can only fund or can channel the funding through research performing organisations, just part of their stipulations as a government body. So complete the application form and then submit it via the portal. So I mentioned linking with an academic institution. You can obviously reach out to Trinity College Dublin here if you're in St. James's, or you can, if you're watching online and you're not based up here and you want to reach out to a different institution, just contact us in Health Innovation Hub, and I'll leave details at the end. Okay, so when you're looking at the application, this is what Enterprise Ireland will be looking for. They'll review it. They want to see the market size, what the advantages of your solution are over the competitor ones, or what's being done now, and that it needs to be really a technical innovation. As I said, that's the difference between a process improvement or service development. Okay, these are the kind of areas as well that you'll need to drill down on. The clinical need, which you should be able to, you'll understand it coming from your clinical background. You'll understand how many patients there are out there exactly, and what the knock-on effects are of whatever indication you're going after. Commercialization side of it, so that there is a commercial need, that people are already paying to solve this problem. And then technical, is it technically viable? Does the technology or the basis for that technology already exist? Is it within the realms of physics? And can you build on it? Okay, and then a kind of competitor analysis table is, I just put this up as more of a demonstration to keep it kind of high level. You'll understand what's going on in the background, but when you're comparing your solution here to competitors that you may know of, and it may even just be a process that's the competitor at the moment, you compare it on factors such as its cost, things that will make sense to a reviewer or a non-clinical or a non-technical person. Is it easy to use? Is it efficient? Is it effective? Is it sustainable, and can it be scaled? So these are all really kind of global factors, as opposed to down into the weeds of the technical stuff. That's for the next meeting. There's loads of resources on the website for the Clinical Innovation Awards to help you write out the application in the how-to section, and it'll cover things like business model canvases and value proposition. This is really understanding who the user will be and who the payer will be. The user may not always be the payer. I always use the example of I bought the Nintendo for my kids. I'm the payer, they're the user. That's a bit, and it's the same in healthcare for a lot of things. So what's next? Enterprise Ireland here have given me the slide, so I'll just jump straight into that, and it kind of follows this sort of pathway. Is there any questions on this so far? Okay. If you want to put your questions online, if you just want to stick them into the Q&A, I'll get to them at the end. So Enterprise Ireland, support for, in this case, they're supporting the Clinical Innovation Award, and they will support healthcare startups all the way through to them really hitting the market. And their ambition really for Enterprise Ireland is to take Irish companies, get them to a stage where they're employing people and they're exporting product. So they're driving revenue. Okay, so scalable enterprises, as I mentioned there, they are extremely approachable as well, Enterprise Ireland, in terms of how you get funding and how you move things on. They're also the #1 investor in Europe and the second globally for investing in companies worldwide. They have over 100 startups coming out that they support every year. And they also work with the IDA and Science Foundation Ireland, so they're all kind of, well, it's Ireland, so we're all interlinked. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, the objectives of the Clinical Innovation Award is to explore the commercial potential. People always ask, can we use the money to build or this to put it towards development? The short answer is no, but there is some latitude in terms of you can have a negotiation with them when you draw the funding down with Enterprise Ireland. I mean, however, the best use of the funding is to put it into understanding the commercial potential of what it is that you're doing, because that really will do all the legwork in terms of the next applications that you're applying for. Yeah, and they're ultimately looking for your idea to become a startup eventually. Yeah, and then the benefits there are there's many different benefits. Least among them is you'll come out after the end of the process speaking like a business person, which never thought you'd be talking about pivoting or any of that. Okay, so here's a little bit more detail on what they're looking for in the application. Again, the clinical, commercial, and technical needs. What's the market opportunity? What's the competitive landscape? What's the unmet need or value proposition that you're going after? Is what you're describing your solution, is it novel? And is there like any other IP out there? This is high level stuff for the moment. The institutions, the university institutions have technology transfer offices that kind of will help with that sort of stuff when it gets to that point. Not for this application, but thereafter. Understanding the care pathway as well, it's important to see where your solution will fit in and all of that. And then your customer discovery, which is about understanding who your users are and who the payers are and what drives them, what their pain points are, etc. So this is a kind of idea of what the timeline looks like in terms of funding and supports that are out there for moving through the Enterprise Ireland's kind of support ecosystem for starting up. You're here at the CIA or CFF, you get that, there is a market. Then you move into the commercialization fund support system, which is up to €500,000 to do that development, to get it to a point that's what they call kind of investor ready. And then you spin out a company and you're into kind of the real world looking for investment at this point. However, part of the COM fund, a significant part of it, that process requires a lot of the commercialization. So there'd be a de facto CEO and a CTO working on a COM fund. So that CEO would be out there generating traction and identifying, investors, etc. Enterprise Ireland then have their high potential startup unit, which is the vehicle, I suppose, for a lot of the spin-outs that have these huge markets in front of them. Then there's other support systems out there, EIT Health, Intertrade Ireland, and Horizon Europe funding through EIC accelerators. And then in the other ones there, So ultimately, this is the company being formed. Okay, so here are the contact details for the guys in Enterprise Ireland. I'll share the slides with people, or we'll make them available online probably as well. Sarah Lonergan, Elaine Byrne, and Etna McShane. I've misspelled it there, but anyway, I'll fix that. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, Aoife, thank you.
Hi folks, so my name is Aoife Tierney and I am the IP Development Manager at Trinity's Technology Transfer Office. So today I'll just give a quick overview of what the Technology Transfer Office does in Trinity, and it's mirrored in institutions around the country. So if you're not affiliated with Trinity, it'll be largely the same in any of the other academic institutions. So yeah, it'll be quickly technology transfer, a little bit about intellectual property and protection, and then finally commercialization and transfer of IP rights. If hopefully get to the stage where you're successful and you think you may want to spin out a company or license technology that comes out of this. So I work in the awfully named Office of Corporate Partnership and Knowledge Exchange in Trinity. So we're two functions. So we do knowledge exchange, which was traditionally called technology transfer, which is basically getting innovation out of research into industry or into the wider world. And then partnership, which is bringing commercial partners in to work on research projects with our researchers. So this is our general pipeline of what we work in Trinity Research and Innovation. So everything from idea generation, and this is at the basic research level, through to supporting proposals with our research development office, helping with proposal submission. Ideally, proposals get funded, obviously, or else we roll them into another application, perhaps. And then once the project is running, this is kind of where our office start to step in. So we're supporting with things like non-disclosure agreements, which I will come to, material transfer agreements, things like IP training, entrepreneurship training, invention disclosure, which we'll also talk about, patent applications and things like confunds and other supports. And ultimately, hopefully, we generate some impact at the end of this. That can be through licensing, predominantly, or through startup development of a startup company. This is just a very quick slide, basically, to show how our process works. Ideally, if you come into us and you've had a new idea, or you think you found something that is a potentially novel invention, we are going to take a look at that, do the technology evaluation. So some of that will have to go into your application at this stage, but if novel IP comes out at the end, that's something that your associated TTO can do if there's further development on that. We will then pay for protection. So we're looking at protection, trying to see, look, is this something that's patentable? If it is, we can apply and pay for a patent, and we can advise on that. And then ultimately, our job is to try and commercialize that IP. So two ways really are licensing or and we license to spin out companies as well as to establish companies. And then ultimately, if there is some success in that, so if we license it to a company, they will give us royalties back if they are successful, and those royalties get divvied out amongst the inventors or the contributors to those inventions. So we don't take a huge cut in them. The majority of it goes back to our inventors. So intellectual property. IP is product or creation of the human intellect or mind. This is a useful table because it just kind of sets out the different types of IP that can exist in different inventions. So potentially the most relevant one here is patents. And the reason they're ordered in this way is that patents are probably the weightiest of your IP protection. They are challenging to apply for and to obtain. They are costly, but they probably provide the strongest level of protection. And they apply specifically to new inventions. So you apply for one, they are examined, there is a discussion with an examiner along the way, and ultimately, hopefully, you get a granted patent, which will cover a very specific and designated invention. Copyright applies to things like original creative works or artistic forms. So that arises automatically, but if you have any novel, I think what would apply here. It's usually stuff like plans or say methods of treatment or questionnaires that might be novel, or the form of the question is important. That's often protected by copyright. Trademarks, we don't tend to deal in that much, but they're very important, obviously, if you have a campus company. And then geographical indications, you don't need to worry about. And then trade secrets, finally, is a form of IP protection where you basically keep everything confidential. There are very strict rules that apply to trade secret. And it's not something we hugely deal with within a university because it's very challenging to keep everything perfectly hushed up. So that tends to be something that commercial entities use more often than not. Again, this is a very old slide, but it's a useful one. Hey there. Because it just gives you an idea that different types of IP can ultimately be contained within one final product. And it's important to bear in mind that just because you have a patent doesn't mean that you don't have design rights, or you don't have copyright, or you don't need to get a trademark. And all of those can be contained within one product. So here, even the form of the buttons was protected by a design right. The software that's in it is protected by copyright. There would have been patents on the data processing methods, the semiconductor circuits, etc. And we don't know what the trade secrets are. So the role of the patent system is largely to encourage technological invention. It does give you a monopoly for in and around 20 years. And the idea of that is that you are given a monopoly in exchange for disclosing your idea to the world. So after 20 years, that information is then free for everybody to use and benefit from, but you get the 20-year head start. So yes, encourage dissemination of information and promote technology transfer. So this is an important slide, particularly if you have something that is likely to be an invention and needs to be protected by a patent. One of the criteria for patenting is novelty. And that means that the invention cannot have been disclosed anywhere in the world prior to you filing a patent. So that means no presenting at conferences, no giving poster sessions that are open to the public, no tweeting about it, no putting up YouTube videos, ideally no chatting on the dart about it either. But if you do need to have discussions and you think it's about something very specific and patentable, it should be done under a non-disclosure agreement. And again, your institution's technology transfer office can help with that. Again, no sale of products, no lecturing, and please do come and see us if you are at all concerned about that. Again, this is just a run through for the patenting system, just to give you an idea of costs and also how long this process can take. So your line in the sand is your priority date. So that's when we file the patent. It costs in and around €5,000 per application. And then 12 months later, I should say it's still confidential at this stage. So patents get published at 18 months. So at 12 months, we tend to go to a thing called PCT, which is the Patent Cooperation Treaty. And your patent will last, if it's granted, 20 years from that date. And so that gives you the option basically to protect your patent in any of the, it's more than 153 now, 153 countries of Patent Cooperation Treaty. So once we kind of get through PCT at 30 months, we then have to choose what individual countries you go into. So patents are geographical rights. So if you have protected something in one jurisdiction, it only gives you protection in that, you only get the monopoly in that jurisdiction. So that's why patenting can get very expensive if you're trying to protect it in multiple jurisdictions. So in general, in Europe, although this is about to change, we would protect it in what would have been called the Big Five. So UK, Spain, Italy, France, and Germany, particularly for medical or drug development patents. And then we usually apply in US, and then depending on what the innovation is, we may look to China, Korea, Japan. But this can be expensive. 40,000 is in and around right, but it can be significantly more than that. Ideally, it gets granted after 6 or 7 years, which is kind of the point at which you can enforce your patent. And then it will expire after 20 years from the file date. So the two ways we would commercialize your IP, as I've said, is either through licensing or through spinning out a company. In Trinity, we will support with all of these options, like licensing, we will take full charge of that. If you're an inventor, you will get the returns from that. If you're spinning out a company, we will license the IP to that company, but we also support you with formation of that company. We have a dedicated startup development manager who will bring you along that journey, can also introduce you to VCs, Enterprise Ireland, obviously you'll be well connected in with as well. So here are just some of kind of the outputs of the office over recent years. So we've had 24 spin-outs, 6 high potential startups that Stephen mentioned. So we've had 16 HPSUs with €200 million in investment, 114 new licenses, 3 spin-out exits worth 680 million. So probably the best known would be Infosome and SilverCloud, and Identigen, an overnight success that started in 2006, somewhere in there. And then we've had 318 inventions disclosed by Tierney staff with 84 patents filed. So this is kind of our bread and butter and what we spend our time doing. So some of the commercialization supports that you will get if you're engaging with the Clinical Innovation Award. So I suppose the most important thing, as Stephen would have said, is you are required to engage with the Technology Transfer Office and get sign-off for your application to the Clinical Innovation Award. So we are more than happy to do that. Both my email and Gordon's email for anybody affiliated with Trinity is on the next slide, and that will be sent out. So we will give sign-off for those. I guess you get your, if you're successful, you get your €15,000 commercialization feasibility award, but also if it is successful and you've been talked through that pipeline, you can come back and talk to us if you want to pursue a comm fund, because that money does need to channel through a university. So we're very supportive of those. We've had a number of spin-ins even. So these are companies that would have been formed already, will have come into us to go and do a comm fund. And we will support them, partner them up with the PI. So Bruce Murphy in Trinity would have done quite a few of these. And then ultimately the company takes the comm fund money, works on the innovation, and hopefully spins back out into a successful company. And we're also able to assist with things like EIT support and all of that. So if you apply, you can also submit an IDF into our office. I suppose the one advantage of, and that's an invention disclosure form. It'll largely mirror your application, but the advantage of that is you'll get things like an EI identifier number, which can be helpful for filling out impact sections in research applications, things like that, and that will be reviewed. There is obviously the potential to go on to comm fund, and then we have our spin-out supports. And as I said, if you choose to go down that route, you'll be rewarded as per our IP policy. So yeah, my email address is there, and Gordon's is as well. So Gordon is the tech transfer case manager for medical health in Trinity. So he will probably be your first port of call, or else you can contact me. Thanks.
Sure. Anyone have any questions? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Chris, if you're ready to go. Chris was one of the winners of last year's Clinical Innovation Award. So yeah, it's your story.
Thank you very much. So Stephen said, so I'm a clinical engineer working in St. James Hospital. I've been here for the past 12 years. And kind of before I get into the project that we were involved in for the Clinical Innovation Award last year, I just want to give kind of the story of what led us to that and the kind of activity we've been doing at the hospital that kind of made us go, let's have a go at this and see where it goes. So as I said, I'm a clinical engineer, and we're based in the Medical Physics and Bioengineering department in James's. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's the department that looks after all the medical devices in the hospital. So we know the medical devices kind of as a day in, day out activity. And that could see us in areas like phototherapy or diagnostic imaging or endoscopy, or the devices that are used to clean and sterilize devices that are used in surgery. So that's kind of the range of activity that we're involved in. And this kind of activity that we do involves a lot of interaction with clinical colleagues. So we tend to work with the nurses and doctors and healthcare professionals and the people on the floor who are working with patients. And what we discover is we find out from them when they're using these technologies, challenges that they have with them. So they still don't do something that they need. And so what we find is people can become very frustrated with what's out there, and they have ideas for how to make it better. So over the years, we've done kind of research projects kind of traditionally with them in trying to see if some of those things could be developed. And then more recently, over the last few years, we've opened this design innovation lab, which is essentially a space and a mechanism where staff can now kind of formally and systematically work through an idea with us. to develop something in-house. So we started with some kind of simple kind of activity. So some people just wanted to create some graphic design stuff that they could use with patients. So it's something that's really important to them. There are patients with a tracheostomy who are going home into the community. They go to a GP they don't know, and they're not able to communicate that the last time they had a tracheostomy change was a difficult one. So this passport essentially has all the details relevant to that particular patient's history, and it allows that patient to be able to be kind of less anxious and more engaged in their community when they're involved in their own healthcare with different healthcare professionals. So things as well like a communication board for ICU. This is something from speech and language therapy that they were looking to have developed, because the ones that are available on the market, which they buy from the States, weren't culturally specific and didn't do what they wanted to do. So they're looking at translating this into Russian and Polish and different languages. So that's something that we're working with them on as well. So with all this activity, we understood that there's obviously a lot of ideas that are in people's heads and a lot of frustrations that people have. And so we have a kind of an annual hackathon where we ask people to submit ideas that they have, either challenges or ideas that they have of solutions that could go towards them. And the ideas tend to come from everywhere, from every different discipline across the hospital. And in the 9 years we've been doing this, it hasn't kind of reduced, so that the flow kind of keeps coming through from different people. And so currently we have about 20 active projects, and these are in the areas of graphic design, service design, product design, and medical device design. So it kind of covers that spectrum. So I know in this particular talk, most people will be interested in the kind of medical device design or product design that has a commercial impact. And so to do that kind of work, we bring the clinicians and the staff into this space, which is essentially a kind of a maker space where we can work with the clinicians on trying to determine, well, what's your workflow? What way is this device going to work if it was developed? And let's bring you into the space and try and prototype things up with you to try and explore what that could look like. So these are one of the devices that we worked on. It's a risk management device. We prototyped it in-house, piloted it in-house, and then got it manufactured and put on the wards. And there was another device that Airway fellow came. He was looking, he gave us a deadline of 3 weeks to be able to get a couple of these made for surgical training. So this is essentially an emergency airway training device for staff. And from that activity, we did it here. He said, can we make it for everyone in the audience, basically? So he was looking to have these made for the airway leads across the country. And that's the kind of development work that we're doing at the minute to work there. So that's the kind of context leading into the Clinical Innovation Award. That activity has been going on. It's a mixture of both the kind of in-house development for immediate use in the hospital that improve the fabric and the care for patients in James's, but also then in that activity and in that mix of people working, we see that there are certain things that we come across that we think this could work well in other hospitals, this could work well in other countries. And so for this particular award that we were successful in last year, Dr Griffin, who's a clinical engineering technician in the hospital, works a lot with endoscopy and staff there, and noticed that there was an issue with patient logistics and being able to get patients through and seen in their procedures. So he had an idea for basically a smart endoscopy system, which came through Design Week, did some prototyping, and was developed over 18 months, put into use in a pilot, and produced a number of metrics that made it look like this could have a real impact. So this project was submitted to the Clinical Innovation Award. We were successful, and it involved myself and Brian and a lot of clinical colleagues, and Robert Callan, who's an external software developer, who helped develop the single backend system for this. So in terms of how we went through it, so just to demystify it for people, I know you've heard some of it already. So it's essentially a 3 or 4 page application, and I think some of the things listed at the top, but anyway. So it's essentially fairly straightforward. You just have to say what the need is, what you think your solution would be, who are your competitors. If you don't think there are any, you kind of need to dig a bit deeper and be a bit more lateral thinking. and look at what are the strengths and weaknesses of theirs compared to yours. Who are your customers and what's the scale of the issue worldwide? So part of the funding for Clinical Innovation Award will be to look at that, but you have to have an initial stab at it to try and find out from the literature and from reports that you can find who could benefit from this and what's the scale of the market. To look at novelties, so to do some initial patenting and literature searches. So we tend to do this for clinical staff and changes who come to us with an idea. We'll do this first, and it can be surprising to some clinical staff when they find out that something's been done when they didn't think that it was available, they couldn't find it from a Google search. But that helps to build confidence that this is something that could work. And the last thing then is the shopping list. So what is it in this particular application that you're looking to do? And it's usually a consultant to do a market review to find out and talk to key opinion leaders to find out is this something that would work in like the big six, as you mentioned, in Europe and in other countries. And then your CV. So that's the kind of application. And it's essentially, as I understand it, is to figure out if there is a commercial case for your idea. So will anybody and enough people want it? Will they buy it? And do they need it? That's essentially what this seems to be about. So in our own engagement, we went through this process over the last number of months and involved engaging with Health Foundation of Ireland, Enterprise Ireland, the TTO office, Aoife, who spoke, in terms of getting an invention disclosure form over to TTO, and working with Enterprise Ireland then in terms of trying to work out the tasks as for what it is you're going to ask your consultant to find out when they do that report for you. And the last piece then was the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Programme. So this is something that I've been going on over the last few months, and it's been a really interesting and kind of engaging experience. So when you go over there, you notice that the level that's happening over in the NHS is phenomenal. The amount of clinical staff who are pushing into the entrepreneurial and commercial space. And this program is supposed to provide mentoring and that kind of networking with our UK colleagues who are looking to do similar things. But you also get to learn a lot about, I suppose, things like branding or communication or venture capitalists and all this kind of thing that you wouldn't be familiar with in terms of working in the hospital, but which is put in a form it's kind of delivered for clinical staff to be able to appreciate and understand. So this is the kind of activities going on. They have a series of pit stops that you go over to the UK to sit in on for 2 days at a time. And you learn from leading experts in the various fields on what's important as you build your commercial journey. So the last word would just be to encourage people to apply. As I said, it's a fairly straightforward application. Get a few people together in a team to do it, and it's been a really worthwhile experience. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Cheers. Any questions in the room? Or any questions online? I just want to pop it into the Q&A. I think that's really it. Sometimes you get the question about what about IP or who owns the IP, etc. Because this is so early stage, we're looking for all levels, I guess, of where the technology or the solution might be. But for the feasibility aspect of it, there generally isn't any IP associated with it. There'll be no foreground IP coming out of it. So the IP is yours. Now that's a very high level approach because there's a lot of nuances to that, and as in your employer owns the IP if you come up with it during work. However, in Ireland, the HSC, let's say, for example, aren't in a position to support or develop IP the same way the university systems are through the tech transfer office. As Aoife spoke about, the costs of prosecuting IP and going to that is not something that the HSE are set up for. So there are mechanisms in which you can have that IP assigned to you, and then you assign it to the universities when you're going down that journey. Benefits of it for anybody working a full-time day job in the clinical space is that it is, as Chris is saying, 3 to 4 page application, including your CV, etc. You do that, you put that in, that's really the first step to getting somebody else paid to do a much deeper dive into it. So you're not expected to be the person who will do the technical development or any of that sort of stuff. You get more funding to hire those people in, and ultimately you will have a role in it, maybe as the chief medical officer or something like that, but your own time would be maybe 5-10% of part of a comp fund. You really need to get the expert team in there to bring it to where it needs to be. Oh, and then when it spins out, you absolutely have a role in that company as the, person who started it. You'll always be the founder. Okay, no questions coming in from online. I'll stop it there.